That's all I hear on a daily basis. Nice, peace, quiet. Little one's up in bed. There she is. From my chair, I can just look out the window. And I always go back and it's just, I'll get it right. My hands don't work right. I'm not going to make things perfect because they're not. It's sort of bright in here still. Turn the wood stove on, it's getting cold. I sit here lots in this piece. Like I said, looking out this window, thinking, running through my brain. I've put down before and I've put down many times. It looks like that I have Lyme disease. There was a positive in there. They're not looking at it. The Canada healthcare system doesn't pay for it, so I have to put up a whole bunch of funds just to figure out what it is. But then because I've had Lyme disease possibly 30 years, it's a long term. Even if you get rid of the Lyme disease, the damage that it does on its way through your body is very, very bad. After 30 years, it gets into synovial fluid, gets past the blood-brain barrier, gets into your brain, gets into your spine, gets into your organs. Figuring all this out after my years of going through what I went through, trying to get myself better and get myself on my feet, it just won't. I've been through a few doors that close behind you and don't open until they tell you they're allowed to open. Been through a few of those situations. They're not fun. Where I'm living right now with what I have and what I can get, it's enough. It's better than being on the other side of the fence. The only problem is, though, is when I was released from their care, that release happened in 2017. I was around a very, very strict environment for 3 years, since 2014 all the way till 2017. My health got better, everything got better. I felt better. I got released to the Peace River region and got released to my parents, and being released to them, it was still in an environment that was closed. Being away for so long and you just want to be back to normal life, and you're tired of being told what to do and locked up and going through stuff. So I end up finding somebody on wherever else, Plenty of Fish. I'm not from the area. I've met a bunch of people and done what I needed to do just to keep things quiet, and met somebody else, and they were in the medical world. They're out there, they're teaching H2S and they're teaching first aid, and they're making sure everybody gets home safe at the end of the day. And if anything goes bad, they've got a head on their shoulders that's a lot more calm than most people, and they can go through situations and come out the other side okay because it doesn't bother them. It's a problem because they start getting to like the problem. If they're a firefighter, they start to like to have people go in and help with buildings. It's adrenaline. They need it. It's a fix. So I met this person, and funny thing was about the person is I knew about them for 9 months. The 9 months I knew about them, I heard everything about them and what was going on. So I already had an in on this person. The only thing is I couldn't because of strict rules, I guess you could say. That person couldn't say the name of this person. So then when I'm out here and I meet this person, I don't even know. The funny thing is I know all about them. I know everything about them. I know about her 2 kids. I know about her divorce. I know about her ex-husband. I know all about this. I just talked to her last boyfriend going out the door, but it took me about 6 months to figure it out, and talking and finding some paperwork and finding out her daughter telling me who her ex was, and then, oh great, I know who this family is. So we try to make things work in the house that she's in, and it's too small. The kids are just not ready. I've been through that situation, young kids, 9, 10, 11, 12, up through that age, going through a bad divorce with mom and dad, having to go back and forth, and can't figure out where you sit in your family's life because your parents don't even know where they sit in their own life, and they're fighting back and forth in court, spending a bunch of money, and nobody's caring about the kids. The kids are sitting there screaming, but nobody cares about them. And well, when you come into a family like that, a single mom with 2 kids that aren't getting loved by the parents, who's the first person they grab onto is mom's new boyfriend. You don't want them stuck to you, but you feel bad because you remember when you were a kid and you just wanted to feel love. You wanted somebody to say, hey, sit down and talk to me. And you get home from school and somebody's willing to sit down and listen to you and listen to your day and listen to a kid. We don't listen to kids no more. We were always told growing up, you're to be seen, not heard. If you're seen, you better be doing something. If you're not, why are you even being seen? We skipped out of town. We skipped out of class. We skipped out of anywhere we could skip out of. You get your license. You wanted your license because you wanted to be able to get out of school and just get away from home and go to the river, go to a friend's place, go do something. Get out of home. Home sucked. Mom and dad would always come home grumpy and expect the house to be clean, spick and span, military, beds to be made, chores to be done, dinner on the table for them. And if that wasn't done, he better be ducking, or you better be at work, or you better have a reason that that's not done. So you come into these other relationships where the kids are back and forth. They're not being looked after by mom. They're not being looked after by dad. You got an opportunity to come into the house and help the situation out a little bit. And through your findings and knowledge, you better get in, do a little bit of fixing, and get out. Because if you try to do too much fixing, yeah, the other side of the door isn't very fun. At least the way the system is nowadays. So you get into this house and yeah, things aren't working and you find a way to get out and you go to a different property. And the only thing is the property you go to is her dad's place, but she tells you go to her dad, talk to him, see what he can do. You go to her dad, talk to him, and you get a 3-year deal that you can hay the property on his land, work the land, do whatever you need. You got 3 years. So while you're doing that, you're burning up some money. So you go to a different property and you talk to the owner and you make another 3-year deal with him because now you got that property and this property. And you look at that property, you can actually hay it this summer and get a little bit of money off of it to cover the cost of the other one. And then come spring, you'll be able to cut the other one and then put that cost to the new one. And you'll be able to have some fun for 3 years. So you get everything moved over and you get your life moved over and you want to just be there by yourself and do your little business. And you've been in society, out of society for so long, you don't want to be near society. So this works perfect. The only problem is now is the girlfriend you have in town wants to be at her dad's place now that you've got a situation there where you have some life that you can live. And the only problem is when these single moms bring around their kids, you can't say nothing because then it becomes what they call domestic. She can drop her kids off at the doorstep, claim that you're doing this or doing that, and then it becomes domestic because the 2 kids are around. Doesn't matter that you're on your own property, you're on a rental that's not even anything to do with her anymore. It's to do with her dad. But you still can't say anything to her because it goes against you. Now she can say you dated. Now you can say you're domestic. That's BS. Shouldn't be allowed to come back and cry that. So she wanted to stay there. I brought a trailer down and started getting a home set up down there. And she wanted to stay there. So I said, fine, there, you stay there. We at the same time had made a deal with somebody that we know as a friend up north in another district of where her properties are, and talked to him. And she signed a 3-year deal with that fella to work his land, and I was going to be the one that worked it. He took it over, but I was going to go up and work it too. The end of 2018, 2009, into 2019, things were good on her dad's place, but then her mom got involved, and when her mom got involved, the deal that I have just with her dad strictly just became everybody's business, and I wasn't allowed on there no more and kicked off of the RCMP. Trying to tell him I have a deal, trying to tell him it's with him, but they didn't want me there. I was off. So I just moved all my stuff from there and I moved it up to the property on 242 in Dixonville and started working the land there 2019. Kind of getting back into a bit of a friendship relationship with the person that lived in the house that I rented years ago. She bought the house in the small town and it had 2 lots on it. So it had 2 addresses. I rented one address with my camper. She rented the other one with the house and her kids. It worked good. Then I could look after her kids. I didn't have to live with her, but I could live beside her, and it worked great. But just being beside her wasn't even working. So I took that, moved it to her dad's place. Then had the issue with her mom and her doing the same thing in that property. So then I took all my stuff from there up to the property on 242 in Dixonville. Started doing the same thing, put my trailer up there, had everything all set up. I was even in the works because she picked up a newer, it was a 2008 toy hauler. But I wanted to get my hands on the toy hauler because it had the garage and it had everything set up that I could just move the trailer up and then live in it. And we were working on me taking it over. We went to the banks. I was just about co-signing it, and then she flopped on the deal. She didn't want to do it no more. So I brought up a trailer and I brought up some buildings and I brought up a few things, and I set up an off-grid home up there. And as soon as I had it anywhere assembled to where somebody could be up there, and I even paid $1,000 to rent a cat for a week for a couple days, and then I borrowed my buddy's truck, and then I paid $50 a day for a trailer to get the cat up there. I have my class 1 license, so I set it all up, and I brought a cat up there, and I pushed the road in, cleaned all the snow up so that it was still frozen, but there was going to be no snow there. And then once I could, then I brought the toy hauler up, and I brought all my stuff and my trailer, and I assembled everything up there just before it thawed out and built a road in. And but again, once again, she decides that we're going to be in a relationship, and because this is her property, she's just going to move on up and drop her kids off again. Well, she stayed around for about a month and a half, and she went back to work. Who was looking after the kids? Me. Myself. There was no power, there was no water, there was no sewer. It all either had to be packed in or solar or generator. Her gone, I have to do it all. I told her, I'm not looking after your kids. But guess what? Again, there's nothing I can do. I try to say anything, speak loud enough, she's just going to claim that it's domestic. The cops are going to look at it domestic, and I'm going to get kicked off. Through the days of 2020, I was on the property and had it all set up, and she came out. Things were fine, but it was her ex-husband. He didn't agree to her renting the property. Well, he agreed 2 years before that to start giving her the property and a couple $1,000 just to make things right because what's in the bank account. And he kept humming and hawing about giving her the property, and that's what we were working on. Her lawyer finally, or his lawyer finally came to her and said, look, this is the deal she wanted to do. She takes 2 quarters of land, $3,000. They both walk away. They sign their deals, and it's done. Everything sounded great. That's why I was going to move up, start renting the land. I would pay the mortgage. In time, when the mortgage was paid off, that quarter I was on would get paid out to me. That was the deal we made. She knew that I was sick. She knew that I was going to need something for my retirement, and this was an easy way to do it. I could just pay the rent to the mortgage, and yeah, it wouldn't take me long. By the time I had it paid off, I had something paid off so that when I did get too sick, then I could just relax. But she reneged on that deal. He reneged on that deal. I stayed on the property in 2021. He left the property May of 2021. I went to her. She went to his lawyer. They spoke about it. She said give him 3 months or 4 months, and then if he wasn't going to take over the property, she'll take it back over, move her cows and her horses over, and move all her property off of where I was back to her farmhouse and leave me alone, was the deal. But come September, she was humming and hawing about moving back to the house, so I told her, well, you got to make up your mind because I need to get firewood. Either I get firewood for here or I get firewood for there, but I'm not getting 6 cords of firewood here, then having to pick it all up and move it over to there. She made the deal and told me it was okay. She handed me the keys to the house, and I moved over to the other house, the farmhouse on 242 or 241, and then started looking after the house to find out what we could do for the house, because when her ex-husband left the house, he left it in very, very disrepair shape, that nobody should be near it until there's an actual assessment done on the house, and she agreed to that. I moved over to the house, started going through cleaning the house up in the wintertime. I've had my own framing business. I've had a remediational, mold removal. I've been through all of that. I have my safety tickets. I know what I'm doing in the house. If I need air, I can get air. If I don't need it, I don't need it. It was safer if one person went into the house and made the assessment than having the kids and her and everybody back in there, because of all the mold that was in that house and known to be in that house. She fought for years to get the kids out of that house because of how unsafe it was, because she knew in 2012 or 2013 when she pulled one of the walls apart, and it was still apart in 2022, that there was mold in the house. She didn't want the kids around it. She was scared of the mold. Was one of the reasons why she took and moved it and got her other place and bought it and then ended up paying it off to put the kids into a safe place. As I was going through the place, it was just knowing the power was not supposed to even be hooked up because there was no permits pulled on this place to make it a civil house to be built. It should have never been sold, and that's why it was a basic cash deal through a deal that they made to get the house. But because there was no home inspection, because there was no proper removal of the house, it should have never been sold out of the first people's house, people's possession, because there was no permits. The house was never permitted to be built to lived in. So I find all this out in the spring. I get a well driller up. The well driller comes up and says what needs to be done to the well. So we have that bill. I had other sources coming into the house, but in April, the landlord and I had discussed about the bills and stuff, and she wanted some money for the upcoming bills because I was using power. And so we had agreed that it was going to be $500. In May, I gave her $1,600, and then I went to work for her company. Instead of her going to work, I took the job and went to work for her. I made the money, so when I came back, I gave her $3,000. So within 2 months there, I gave her $4,600, which would cover 9 months of rent. I'd be good until January. And then she was fine, but when I went to work in June, she took over the house and said that I'm not living there anymore because I was already building another setup in the shop that was a lean-to, but I had my trailer in there, I had my camp shack in there, I had a deck in there, I had everything all nicely sealed up. It worked really good. It was a good place to have everything where I had it so that I could look after the house, keep looking after the house and doing what I needed to do to fix it for the way that she wanted it. But she took the house over in the summertime of 2022, and I told her right away, there's no way that she should be living there. The black mold, the electrical problems, the flooding problems, the sewer problems, the cistern being full of sewer. It's not a place to have anybody in. And I eventually tried to send those pictures off to CFS. I sent them off to Alberta Health Services. They were going after the landlord, telling her, there's an issue. Well, it came down to in December, she said she was going to leave, take the kids and leave. I was happy, finally. January 8th, she disappeared to Slave Lake and left the kids alone in this mess to keep up. There was no heat. You had to bring wood in. You have to pack water. None of the kids had their license. They were packing water down highways that were icy, full of water. A truck shouldn't be driven kindly. So these kids don't know what they're doing. It's dangerous. And I was fighting pretty hard to get these kids out through CFS, through the RCMP, through the landlord and tenant, because the house was unsafe. She pushed her way into the house, should have never been in there. It was unsafe in the beginning. I moved out because it was unsafe. Landlord and tenant says that if a house is unsafe by a landlord or a tenant, that one of them should be deemed, given a proper residence to move into, and I wasn't. But I was okay because I had my residence in the shop already built to get out of the house because it was unsafe. She pushed and pushed and pushed hard enough that she was able to get the cops on her side. By March 1st of 2023, I was evicted off the property because there was a lock put on the gate. Landlord and tenant states that locks do not get put on gates that cannot be accessed by both parties. If one party changes the lock and the other one doesn't have access, it's illegal. The RCMP should be phoned, the lock should be cut, and then the tenant should be allowed back on. Instead, the RCMP were phoned, the tenant was arrested, given harassment charges, kicked off the property, not allowed back. Then while he was trying to go to town and figure out what to do, landlord had tenant's trailer hauled north an hour away from where the place was without a court order that stated that my stuff gets removed, or without a court order saying that I'm not even allowed on the property as a tenant. I had filed landlord and tenant against the landlord on February 23rd. Landlord filed a restraining order on the 27th against tenant. And even in that restraining order, the landlord agreed verbally on an oath served document that the tenant was allowed to be there, that he is a tenant. But the court still disregarded that sworn testimony by the landlord, found the tenant guilty, and put a restraining order on him for another 6 months while they waited for trial on charges of harassment. Because the tenant was trying to get the landlord off the property, the landlord was then able to say it was domestic, and then once she turned it domestic, then it kicked the tenant off. The tenant had been on the property since October 21st of 2021 all the way until March 1st of 2023. Landlord moved onto the property June of 2022 illegally, forcing the tenant out of the house because the tenant found the house illegal because of the health issues, the mold issues, the sewer issues, the dead animals in the basement, just the whole plethora of electrical issues, and nobody should be in the house. But so her being there illegally and removing the tenant illegally by saying that it's a domestic is, again, where I go back to my story at the beginning, that this becomes BS, because all she's got to do is say that her kids and her are being harassed by this person. The person's off and he loses 100%. And I have lost 100% of my civil rights on this, because as soon as she took it criminal and took the harassment in and made it federal, then they dismissed me as anything. I have no say. I have lately even called the women's shelter, who have had a black mold issue, and they're not taking it seriously. Through that text message and calls to the women's shelter, it's reached out to the Peace River RCMP, and I have again made my statement that black mold is serious. I am sick from black mold. My dog is sick from black mold because of that house. Her daughter, her son could be still sick from it. She could be, her ex could be. Her ex had somebody living in that house for a long time. She could be sick, and her kids could be sick. The one problem with black mold, and I keep trying to say what I need to say about it, is it doesn't go away with antibiotics. You have to take a certain antifungal medication in order to get rid of it. The best way to get that medication is to get the mold in the house tested, sent in, then they can go to the doctors, and the doctors can then tell you what mold you need treatment for. Same as my Lyme disease. If I know what tick it is, then I can go in, get my Lyme disease treatment, and figure it out. But the Lyme disease treatment is a lot of money I physically don't have. For somebody to come in and service the house and check what mold it is, that's free. That service would be free for somebody to come in, service the house, tell us what mold it is. Yes, there's this. No, there's not. The house is fine. The house isn't fine. We take that to the doctors. We all get healed and we get fixed. We get help, and this stops bugging us. For myself, it's attacking my Lyme disease. I understand that now. Now I've got a new route to take. With them, they don't know what's making them sick. They will never know what's making them sick, because an antibiotic won't get rid of it. You don't take the medication for mold poisoning every day. It's nothing you take. It's something you have to be given. The only problem is now, after fighting this hard, fighting this long to get what I needed to get healthy, to get fixed, I find out last summer in June, the landlord actually set her house on fire and got rid of the evidence. She thought she was getting rid of evidence that would stop it from me. The only thing is she stopped the evidence from everybody getting help. Everybody that was in that house, I don't know what mold it is. I don't know how far that mold can reach. I don't know if that mold can reach people that come for Christmas. I don't know if that mold can reach people that when they leave, or if there wasn't. We don't know, because she burnt the house down trying to hide that evidence. Along the way, I have the paperwork, I have the document, I have the sworn testimony truths. Now what I need is the end result of this, and I know where to get the end result for this. And that's what I'm on the trail of now. I do have an appointment for a neurologist, and I think that would be a good start to do. But the thing is if it's black mold, if it's poisoning, it's going to have to be dealt with right away to stop it, because if you don't stop it, it gets worse. My Lyme disease is only getting worse. bacterial infection or this fungal infection will go after the other one. Now I have two to deal with, not just one. And that is all because of a negligent landlord who has now fought tooth and nail, criminally indicted herself in federal charges because she has committed numerous amounts of perjury in the court of law. And not only perjury, but she's also has a restraining order that has a lot of convictable convictions towards somebody because she has falsely applied for a restraining order that the RCMP were said, no, this matter's civil, but she went over the RCMP right to the courts, filed 7 allegations against the tenant that he's been doing but never did, and has proof to say it, and show that this landlord has been committing numerous acts of harassment towards this tenant because this tenant is trying to figure out his health. And all she's had to do is use her kids. It's harassment now. Now the kids are involved. She keeps bringing her daughter involved. I'm not harassing the daughter. I'm not seeing the daughter. I haven't seen the son. I haven't seen anybody. I've stayed away from everybody. I have to take a cab now because she's had my support pulled last year and under fraud investigation. She had my medical staff that I had. She had that pulled because she phoned them and lied to them. It's a case of all I'm trying to do is get my health and matters fixed by figuring out what I need. And I had it, but because she moved into the house, nobody would come in there. Nobody listened. Alberta Health Services said if she wants to be in that house and raise her kids in there, she can. And I'm like, in that kind of conditions, they said that's up to her. CFS was going to pull the kids, but then she pulled they're my kids and this is domestic card, which then CFS turned on me, messaging a 14-year-old girl messages that she should never be messaging a 14-year-old girl. That's conflict of interest. That's between client confidentiality. She breached. She went in and found information in her file folder that she has confidentiality reasons for, found my name, brought it up, and told a 14-year-old girl. Great. Right down to CFS doing illegal stuff. I have names. I'm not saying them. But this is getting ridiculous. I'm trying to get my health in order, and I have a court system, a cop system, I have a family system, I have a complete system turning their backs, looking at me as I'm the problem, and everybody continues to be sick because of her poisoning, her negligence. And I've told the courts that she is a bad mother, and she has tried to go after me. I'm sorry. If you know that you are physically poisoning your kids with something that could be detrimental, neurological down the road to your kids, affect their livelihoods, affect the way that they are, and you have a way to make that better, and all you do is throw somebody in court and say he's the problem, you got everybody in your family saying he's the problem, all your friends in the family saying he's the problem, pointing fingers. I have nobody now. All my friends, family, everybody's turned on me. Why? Because I have charges. Why? Because of this. Why? Because of lies that she's told them. All because I'm trying to make everybody healthy and better, not sick. But she wants to make everybody sick. I guess that's just the way that it is. I've figured it out. She can be the one that lives with anybody else because mold bacteria, mold poisoning will actually go to a point of shutting down your intestines, your organs. I lost my auntie 3 years ago because her lungs collapsed because she's been around mold a long time. Her lungs couldn't handle it no more. At my age right now, the way I can't breathe, the way I sound, I can't handle it no more. It's going into the point where my lungs are going to collapse. When? I don't know. Soon? I think so. I hope I can get some help on this. I hope maybe at one time that this video that I have, that I'm going to keep posting some information out here on, will reach to the certain people that might actually want to have their ears open. I've told a few people lately this feels like Aaron Brockovich. I really do feel that. Why? There's a bigger matter here that would have been bigger, but somebody was allowed to commit a criminal act of arson to hide evidence, to hide something that can make a whole bunch of people healthy, but she picked on one person. And the funny thing is she said the fire was lit by a cigarette. Nobody there smoked. Her dog went back in the house and died in the house. Why? Because she went into the house last and went out the basement door last. Where was he going? He was following her. What was she doing? She went in the house during the day, lit the house on fire, left the house like that. She lost her dog to it. I hope she's happy with that, because I'm not. That was sad news to hear. I knew exactly why she did it. But maybe things can come about. I don't know.